Welcome back for a update on my vinegars. I have various ones at many different stages of the fermentation process. So I was just going to kind of give you an update on my steps throughout each of the different weeks. These ones are the oldest, and we are going to be filtering out the actual fruit so that it's just left with the vinegar. Right now it's in the wine stage, so between 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes even up to 4 weeks, it can be in that wine stage. After that, you can filter out the fruit and take the wine to vinegar through the rest. Through the wine and the vinegar stages, you still want to have airflow. So I've covered these. You might be able to see a few little fruit flies flying around. With this many vinegars, they're very plentiful. So I have some little fruit fly traps that I buy from Walmart, kind of scattered around the kitchen to help mitigate that. So anyway, we are going to be processing these and filtering out the fruit, but keeping the oxygen available so that wine can be turned into vinegar. And then we're going to be looking at the different stages of this pineapple. These are about a week apart, and at various stages of kind of mold growth, and I want to show you the difference there. These other ones have lots of different little issues, and so I think it's a really great time to show you the differences there. And then these are my banana vinegars, and I'm in the experimentation process. I've never made those before, and so watching a few different YouTube videos, I've done them different ways, and I'll show you those and kind of what to expect, because those are kind of a whole different ballgame. Anyway, so let's process these. We have a raspberry, a strawberry, apple cider vinegar, and then these pineapples. So I'm going to be filtering these out and processing them. So I'm going to filter the actual juice out into this clean and sterilized bowl. All of my instruments are sterilized, but I am going to be cross-contaminating between all of the different vinegars, but they will be sterilized from the beginning. Anyway, so I'm going to put the fermented fruit scraps into my feed bucket for my chickens and the actual vinegar into the bowl so that we can clean and sanitize this jar, because we won't be moving that vinegar again. It'll just, once the vinegar process is completed, we will just cap it and store it in that bottle. So we'll be washing and sanitizing this in between. So I'm just taking this, and I will overlay that on the screen so that you can see what it's looking like before we do our processes. So we want to get out every little bit of vinegar. Well, it's wine at this point, every little bit of wine that we can at this point. So I'm just going to be mixing it around. Hopefully you can see me good. This isn't the most ideal location, but I wanted to be further away from my freeze dryer in case my audio had issues again. All right, so I've gotten out as much of the wine as I can get out in a timely manner. So I am going to put the fruit scraps into the bucket for my chickens. They will love that. It's very healthy for them. All right, so now that I've got this clean and sterilized, I will be attempting to pour this vinegar back into this jar. So it does still have a little tiny bit of sediment, but it's really fine. And that's just fine. That's exactly what you want for the mother to develop after time. Again, that mother is a gelatinous substance. Kind of starts at the bottom. Sometimes it might float to the top depending on what kind of vinegar you're using. But that mother is full of probiotics and helps jumpstart your vinegars. So in the future, you can take part of that mother and put it into a new fresh fruit mixture so that it can speed up the process of that fermentation. So there is the semi-final product of the raspberry vinegar. So I am going to put a cloth over it and set that aside for another, I'm going to do it probably for another 2 to 3 weeks, just to really get that vinegar, and then you can cap it and store it in a cool, dark place. So let's process the strawberry while we are at it, and it can be straining while I show you the pineapples. All right, so I'm going to be dumping this strawberry out. It's interesting, the smells, because I'm not much of a wine connoisseur or fermentation person at all. So it's a little bit to get used to, of this many different fermenting smells in your kitchen. So this one has quite a bit more of the strawberry sediment in there. I'm going to grab another bowl. You could tell I did not prep for this. Anyway, while that is working, let me show you these pineapple vinegars. So these are at 3 different stages. As you can see, this is the oldest one, and there is like no mold on top. So once it's in that wine stage, getting into the vinegar stage, the acidic levels of it make it so bacteria can't even grow. So, but you can see with these other ones, we have some issues, some white film forming on top, and some actual mold. So mold can present in a couple different ways with vinegar. Sometimes it's in that salmon kind of pinkish color, which you gotta keep on it and scoop that out frequently. Any of the white stuff as well. So every day, the reason that mold is forming is because the fruit is staying oxidized a little bit too long, and bacteria is able to form. So if you can constantly be putting the fruit and rotating it through and under the water, then it's going to have less mold growth. So I rotate these every day, but I still have a little bit of mold growth, especially in that first week. As you can see, week 3 has more than week 2, so it gradually gets better over time, where you just have to stir the water every day. You don't have to mitigate the mold. So anyway, you just take this mold right off. Sometimes you might have to get a spoon to get some of it out. And then you're just going to give it a good stir and try to bring up some of that other fruit up on top and get some of this fruit down below. And then you're going to want to let it sit for just a minute or so, kind of settle a little bit. And then you'll see some of the floaties that you might have missed are more easily scoopable to get out of there. All right, so I'm going to do the same with the week 3 one. The week 3 one is kind of a slimier mold than this one. This one's week 2 is kind of hard to get out. Week 1, super easy. It just kind of clumps together, and that white film is easy to pull out. And you might have to pull some of the fruit out if it's really moldy and you can tell that it's because of one piece of fruit that's just not that great. Go ahead, pull it out. It's not worth risking the rest of your vinegar. You might have some pulp in some of the different vinegars, the same way. With this pineapple, I think it's pretty good. This pineapple was was not quite to that ripe, rotten stage yet. And so it's not going to have as many pieces of fruit that may potentially ruin the batch. All right, giving it a good stir so that some of those white pieces can float to the top. Some people get really freaked out by any presence of mold, which is understandable. I can see why you would. It's kind of an interesting process. So if you are super worried, super nervous, I would be stirring my vinegars like all the time, every couple hours, making sure that you are using a good cloth or coffee filter with a rubber band on it. Anyway, just keep on stirring if you have major mold issues. I keep my place fairly warm because I grow my seedlings indoors, and I have I try to keep my house kind of like a greenhouse. So these are plenty warm, and mold is just going to be an issue. If you have air circulation at all, turn on a fan or something like that. That'll help with the fruit flies and with some of your mold. But anyway, so these vinegars are doing very well. It's interesting to take a sniff between the 3 different weeks, and you can start to train your nose to identify what's just water, what's wine, and what is vinegar. So these 2 I'm going to set aside. They are done for the day. I will be doing the exact same thing tomorrow. All in all, once, if I'm not talking and trying to make a video, it only takes like maybe 2, maybe 3 minutes to do this on the daily basis. You want it where you can remember to do it. If you just put it in a closet or somewhere where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, I notice that I forget to do that, and then the mold problem gets really bad, and I might have to scoop off the top, third of my vinegar to get rid of all of that, the bad stuff. The whole vinegar is not lost, typically. At least in my case, I haven't lost any major vinegar that way. But you may have to get rid of a lot in order to mitigate some of that mold if it's tucked away. I like to keep these out and about where I can monitor them. This is kind of my food processing center. So I do my vinegars here. I sprout my chicken fodder, my personal sprouts, and everything are all kind of right here. So this is kind of a little bit of a smelly area, but I don't plan on processing this much all the time. So if you only had like 2 or 3 vinegars, it might not be as bad. Now, we're going to process the strawberry, and then we will process this pineapple as well. All right, now these might be a bit of a shocker to look at right off the bat. These are my various experiments with banana vinegar. So let's kind of go through and describe some of them. So these 3 are the same recipe, but these 2 were created about a week before this one was. So we have the different stages. This one is with bananas and banana peels, and they were just going from green to ripe, just right in that stage. The other 3 were like way overripe. They're in that like banana bread kind of bananas, right? So these 3 are, this is a week before this one. So this one's just a little bit newer, and we can see the different styles here. As you notice, the tops are black, and that looks a little gross, right? But bananas oxidize very quickly, and the black part is something that you're just going to discard anyway. So you keep it on top, and that is where any potential mold is going to grow. I find that mold is growing on these 3, but not necessarily this one as much. So this one is purely bananas. There's no banana peels in it at all. But it is just starting to get some black up around the top. So all of these were created with a shot of apple cider vinegar, some sugars to get that process started, and filtered water with bananas and banana peels. And this one is strictly bananas. And then these 2 back here are strictly banana peels. There's no banana substance in them at all. It's just a pureed, overripe banana peel. Just testing that out, seeing how the flavors do between the different types. But as you can see, I'll overlay the photo, that there is some mold growth that we have to mitigate. In these ones, the banana peel version is just purely black. It's just oxidizing at this point. There's no mold growth. But With anything that has the actual banana substrate in there, there is some mold growth that you have to mitigate on a daily basis, and scoop that out. So I will do that in my own time, but you can see the differences in the bananas, and in a few weeks, I'll provide an update on flavor profiles and how they turned out, the ones versus the others. Just to show you really quick, I'm going to be processing this pineapple vinegar, but as you can see, with each of the big jars, when we strain the fruit out, there's only this much vinegar. So what I do is I process it for me in this jar, and then any leftover I put into these little decanters, and these are for family and friends, or for people to buy usually. So that's just kind of giving you an idea of how much you're going to be getting out of these. All right, gonna start straining this pineapple vinegar. I washed my instruments just in between the red berry vinegars and this pineapple one. That's going to be so lovely. So this one has less than the berry juices because there's more actual pineapple chunks taking up space in the original vinegar. So this one's not going to yield quite as much, but still, it's gold. Okay, so here is my fire cider. I'll put a link below to the fire cider recipe that I used, but this has onions, garlic, jalapenos, horseradish, ginger, apple cider vinegar, something else. Anyway, I'll put the link below, but excellent fire cider. All right, these are my, well, mostly citrus vinegars, lemon, lime, orange. This is a cutie mandarin orange, and then my cranberry. So these are the most recent. They have only got about a week on them, if that. Yeah, they're at a week right now. So you can see that there is very little mold on top. There is some, but it's at a minimum because of the high acidity of these fruits. So anyway, just like the rest, mitigating that, pulling out that white film, stirring it, keeping the peels under the water, and just keeping at it. So just one word of caution with the process that I learned. One mistake that I made just recently was that I put a raisin vinegar in an airtight environment. I put this lid on it for 30 days and just let it sit. And it kind of developed a little bit of a white substance floating around in the vinegar. And I have it here. This is the raisin. So this is like on day 40, I think. I've let it go another 10 days past the 30. I took off this cap on day 30 and just let it sit with some airflow to it to see if that would bring it back. But oh my gosh. I tell you, my nose is finally getting trained to tell the difference between wine, vinegar, etc. This one is just pure rotten. I mean, it nasty smelling. So, super big lesson I learned. Just don't even bother putting it in an airtight environment. Make sure that it has good airflow. I did the exact same jar, but with just a cloth over the top for the 30 days. Turned out excellent. It's one of my favorite vinegars. That raisin vinegar goes great in stir fries, in everything. So, lesson learned. don't use those caps. Anyway, if you have any comments or questions, let me know, but I'll give you an update on the banana vinegars as they get ready and their differences, and maybe the citrus ones too. The rest of them I'm just going to process as normal. They're fairly basic and straightforward. All right, have a great week.